Y'all take a look. I actually got these are the preconditioned calves. These are the calves that I'm working on preconditioning, and a few of these animals, actually about 5 of these animals are I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 animals or so that they can actually go to the back, but I'm not putting them in the back just because I got so much grass out here. It don't really matter where they are. They got plenty to eat. It doesn't matter. And but I've actually decided that I'm gonna precondition the calves on grass. And you know, I've always talked about this when it comes to preconditioning calves on grass. And it doesn't even matter, even if you're not preconditioning your calves, even if you're running dry cows or whatever it may be, you got to understand that different grass has different feed values, right? It's very important to understand this concept. Grass is not just grass. All right, depending on what stage of development that your grass is in, depending on the mineral levels of your soil, depending on what cultivar of grass you're growing, you know, even moisture content, you know, and even a heat, you know, even the temperature, right, will change the sometimes when it gets real hot and it gets real dry, your grass will, you know, some grasses will actually become poisonous. So, you know, grass, there's a lot of things that go on with the grass. But in this certain situation, in this certain circumstance, hey, leave it alone. In this circumstance, I have deemed it okay to precondition my calves on grass. And I talk about this all the time, but when it comes to calves, the smaller the animal is, the more aware of the situation that you need to be in. Like, you need to be very aware of what situation you're in. If the animal is very small, their rumen is not going to be very big. All right, the rumen is going to be very small. Also, if they develop acidosis, that small animal will dehydrate very quickly. Their rumen will shut down, and all sorts of problems. You know, this is also why I say, you know, I would not suggest that you go and buy 200-pound calves. But at the end of the day, it's a free country. You can do whatever you want. You want to go and buy 200-pound calves, have fun doing it. Nobody's stopping you. You can do whatever you want. You know, but if you're gonna do it, I would be very aware of the situation that you're in. All right, you know, if you put them on, if you put them in it, but I mean, and also on the other hand, you know, if you put animals on a grass and the grass is not being grown properly, they're not going to condition properly. You need to be aware of that too. I would highly suggest that you understand these certain parameters, right? You know, it's very important to understand these things because, you know, if you have animals on grass and that grass isn't growing properly and that grass does not have the right feed values, your animals aren't going to precondition properly. And also, on the other hand, if you actually grow grass very well, then raising cattle becomes almost free. It's very cheap. Very cheap. I mean, for me to raise, you know, and I actually went out this morning, and I took a look at my lease property just to make sure that the cattle are doing okay. And when I got there, I walked up to the cattle, and when I walked up to the cattle, it freaked them out. So they stood up for a moment, and when they stood up, they pooped. It didn't freak them out. They just stood up because because I was there. And when they stood up and they looked at me, they pooped. And so I got to check their manure. Their manure looks very good. Nobody's having acidosis. Nobody's manure is clumping up real hard or anything. And in all honesty, I could probably raise another 30 cattle, no problem. I could probably put another 30 cattle on that field, right? I already have, you know, I could probably raise, I would say about 70 animals. And for me to raise 70 animals, putting on about 90 to 100 pounds per animal per month. So you know, imagine if I have 60 and if I have 70 animals, let's say I have 70 animals, and I am putting on 90 pounds a month per animal on the average. That is 6,300 pounds of beef that I am growing. I can grow 6,300 pounds of beef for about $1,500. That's another way to look at it. Well, you know, that's what I found about the cattle business. I always say I'm not really in the cattle business. I'm in the grass growing business. All right, you know, if I didn't have the grass, it wouldn't, be, and I talk about this in terms of, the broader commodity markets for Central Texas, and even if you get cheaper than market prices for your commodities, it's not very good. It's not a very good idea, because imagine that you're relying on a commodity feedstuff, and I talk about this all the time. But when you have a commodity feedstuff, you're effectively, we can effectively, if you're going to a broker to buy feed, even if you're mixing it yourself, you're effectively buying a commodity feed. And if you think about commodity feed, the gold standard for commodity feed is effectively corn. All right, it doesn't matter, you could you could feed cottonseed meal, you could feed wheat, you can feed milo, you can feed silage, it doesn't matter. But effectively, it's all just gauged by corn. More or less, it's all going to be the same as corn. And when you harvest corn, you need a bunch of machinery, and you need a lot of water. All right, you need a lot of water, and you need a lot of machinery. Right, you're gonna need a combine. You're gonna need you're gonna need a combine. You're gonna need a giant old grain cart. You're probably gonna need 2 tractors, and you're gonna need, grain storing facilities, and all this machinery. And and that machinery costs money. It's not free. And machinery, the golden rule with machinery is that it always breaks, and it always takes money to run that machine. But when I grow grass, I grow the grass and then I just put the cattle on it, and that's it. That's all, that I grow the grass and I put the cattle on it. But growing grass is not easy. All right, and I talk about this in terms of a reality perspective. When it comes to growing grass, I may legitimately be one of the best in the world at it. It doesn't even come close. All right, I may be one of the best in the world at it. When it comes to running cattle, maybe I'm in like the top whatever, few 50, maybe the top 50,000. I'm not one of the best at running cattle. I'm very good at it. I'm very good at it, but I'm not close to being the best. When it comes to growing grass, I may legitimately be one of the best on the planet. All right, and this is what I talk about when I'm in the cattle business. I'm actually in the grass business. All right, that's the other side of things. This is also why I put such an emphasis on learning how to grow grass. If you learn how to grow grass, and also growing grass is very cheap. Even if you mess it up, it doesn't really matter, because it's like, let's say that you have a 5-acre piece of land, and you're sitting there, and you're really taking this seriously. Oh man, I'm gonna really take this thing seriously, and I'm gonna go for it, and I'm gonna learn how to do this. I'm gonna learn everything that I can, and I'm really gonna go for it. And if you went and you planted grass on 250 acres, even if you messed it up completely, you would be out like $350. That's it. It doesn't matter. The money is negligible. I talk about this all the time. Money is negligible. All right, if it costs me like whatever, $1,500 a month to grow 6,300 pounds of beef. That's 6,300 pounds of beef. I will make like $2.25, $2 net profit per pound. That's like $14,000, and I'm not even liquidating all of my animals. All right, I'm only liquidating a few of my biggest ones. That leaves me with the rest of the herd. And realistically, I make over $20,000 a month doing this. All right, I mean, I just take the money out of the money that I make. All right, I brought home $14,000. I brought home whatever, $15,000. And I need $1,500 to run my business. I take the $1,500 out of the $14,000 that I make. That's how I pay for the business. Right? Very easy. Nothing is complicated. I put a lot of emphasis on this idea, right? I put a lot of emphasis on this idea because it is very important. The money is negligible. The money is negligible. The money is negligible. What is more important is that you have the right idea, and that you are going in the right direction, and you have some kind of a logical, situation, right? It's like, why would you fertilize the ground if it's not going to rain? All right, why would you fertilize a piece of brush? Right? I mean, as long as you have the right idea and you are going in the right direction, that's what's more important than thinking about money. The money is negligible. Even if you mess it up completely, which you should not be doing, but even if it happens, it happens, right? I'm sure it's going to happen. Even if you mess it up completely, it is not going to cost you a lot of money. Understand that. As long as you understand these concepts, right? Oh, I should, if my field does not have natural grass on it, and the lease property that I showed you is a very realistic look at a field that actually has prairie grass. Right, that lease property actually has prairie grass on it. All fields do not have prairie grass on them. This field does not have prairie grass on it. If I did not plant grass on this field, I would have weeds and brush growing in everywhere. It would not just be prairie grass everywhere. That's not how the world works. All right, and cattle do not eat brush. Brush does not sustain cattle. If you do not condition your animals properly, you will not get paid any money. You will actually lose money on that. You might as well just feed the animal properly, because if you feed the animal properly, you will actually make more back than what it costs you to feed the animal. That's very important to understand too. And I showed you a very realistic example of this, right? I actually bought a 650-pound animal at a body conditioning score of 3 for under $1,100. He was 650 pounds and I paid like $1.70 for him. And that happens when the feed yards don't want the animal. If your animal is bone thin, the feed yard will not buy your animal, and the feed yards are the ones with the big dollars. The feed yards have the big dollars. They will pay you the money. They will give you a check for however, if you take them the cattle that they want, if you bring them their cattle, they will give you the check, no problem. Whatever, I've seen people write $1 million checks, multiple $1 million checks, right? I mean, they will give you the money, no problem. They don't care about the money. Right, they want the cattle, they want the good cattle, right? And I talk about this, what kind of animals are you looking for? Beef animals, number 1 to 1.5 type, medium large frame, right? When it comes to raising the animal, the commercial standard. What is the commercial standard, right? Body conditioning score of 6. Right, they want a body conditioning score of 6, and they also want them steered. And when it comes to raising these animals, and I bring them in small, and I sell them big. Right, you have to understand that these small animals are the most difficult cattle that you can ever imagine. 200-pound calves are the most difficult cattle that you can ever imagine. Okay, they are the most difficult. If you do not understand that, and you go out and you do it, you're gonna figure it out. The most difficult cattle that you can ever imagine. All right, and so and I talk about the immune system, right, and the feed values and what to feed the animal, and I talk about all these things, right. And also, and I talk about this in terms of a reality sense. If you make it to the 10% mark, you can actually practice for free. You can actually practice for free. And in terms of a reality sense, that's about as good as it gets. Because nobody is waking up tomorrow and doing this. It's not possible. You're an idiot. If you legitimately, this took me my entire life. All right, it's not funny. This legitimately took me my entire life, and I live where I work. And I work 7 days a week. All right, I make over 200. I make somewhere between 250 to 500 times the median income. All right, it's not funny. All right, I don't know if you're naive or if you're dumb, but it's not going to happen. Nobody's waking up tomorrow and doing this. But understand, on the other hand, if you get to the 10% mark, you can actually practice for free. And also understand that even if you mess it up completely, you should, let's say that you whatever, right? You've decided you're actually going to go for the 10% mark, which is very good. That's a very good place to start. And so you've decided, so you're sitting there and you're going, okay, so, I'm going to take this very seriously, right? I'm going to go and walk across my field, and I'm going to see, does my field even have grass on it? Does it, or is it some brush material? I'm going to go and figure that out first, right? So you go and so you take a walk across your field, and you say, well, I don't have any grass. I actually have brush material growing in all over my field. Right, and so what's a very realistic thing that you can do in that point, right? You should probably plant some grass, and when you plant your grass, you should also probably fertilize it, right? Very simple. Very simple. And even if you mess it up completely, you'll only lose maybe $350. But if you do it somewhat okay, you should be at least getting your money back. Right? Once you've grown the grass, put the cattle on the grass and the cattle will harvest it for you. And when you sell those cattle, you should at least be getting your money back. And that is how you practice for free. All right, because nobody, and in terms of a broader idea, in terms of, but let's talk about this, because I think that I'm actually preconditioning my animals on the grass right now, and I actually anticipate that these animals will be preconditioned here in about 3 weeks, and in about 3 weeks I'll actually be selling animals. I got animals that are ready to go to market, and I'm gonna take that money and I'm gonna buy more calves. I'll probably sell 3 and buy about 7. And so I'm gonna sell 3 and I'll buy about 7, and I'll still have money left over for fertilizer. And I anticipate that my grass is effectively going to grow until about June, for about another 3 or 4 months. So let's take a look at the situation. My income is actually going up by about 10 to 15 to 20%, compounding every single month. That's another way, and I've been talking about this in terms of a point of inflection. The amount of money that I'm making is actually going up on a vertical scale. And even if you look at this today, like what it is right now, I make about $25,000 a month on a 10.5 acre field running commercial cattle. Most people cannot make $20,000 to $25,000 a month doing anything. It not even farming, and farming is very difficult. It's not easy, and it's not an opinion. Farming is very difficult. It's not something that you just magically, nobody's born to be a farmer. All right, if you legitimately think you're born to be a farmer, you're probably actually closer to being a bum than being a farmer. If you and I were put on the same field, I would legitimately make you look like a bum. Nobody's born to be a farmer. All right, you were probably born average, and then you went downhill your entire life, and now you're kind of pathetic. All right, you have to get started. All right, you have to, and when you have the right information and you're going in the right direction, you are off to a very good start. You need the right information. All right, you cannot be in a situation where you have a bunch of opinions and you're my opinions. Your opinions are not important. All right, life. You have fun dying poor. All right, you need the right information. All right, you need the right information, and in all honesty, if I can get you to the 10% mark, that's about all that I can realistically do. And at that point, you can practice for free. And if you practice for free over a very long period of time, then maybe one day you get to make it too. Because I didn't even get paid until my 13th year. 12th year, something like that. 12th, and this is either my 14th or my 15th year. And and it's like, and if it come, because okay, and as of right this moment, this 10.5 acre field makes me about $20,000 a month, maybe a little bit more, $23,000 a month. And my income is actually going up very quickly, compounding 15 to 20% every single month. If you don't understand it in terms of money, take a look at it in terms of cattle. I do very well for myself. Most people cannot make $25,000, $23,000 a month doing anything. And I managed to do it by starting myself my own 10.5 acre farm, commercial cattle farm. All right, that it is what it is. Money talks. Nobody cares about an opinion. I'm the one with the money. Right? If it comes down to it, I will leave you all for dead. I don't care. I will legitimately go and be rich by myself. Have fun with your opinions. You're gonna die poor. You're practically a bum. All right, nobody cares what you think. Take your opinions to the court and sue me. All right, nobody cares. Take your opinions to the bank. All right, nobody cares. I mean, you need to be, you should not be in a situation where you cannot even do 10%. And you have a bunch of opinions about this. If you cannot be in a situation where that's not good. All right, that's not good. You cannot be in a situation where you have a bunch of opinions and no results. You're gonna end up poor, and you'll end up practically a bum for the rest of your life. All right, you know, get started on something, work on something, get good at something, be useful, make, you know, and then and as a result, you will make a lot of money. All right, you know, people need beef. People need beef. You know, people need beef. People don't need opinions. People need beef. People need food. People don't need opinions. You're not going to eat an opinion. All right, and when it comes to results and when it comes to what it is, I am effectively one of the best in the world at it. You know, I may be one of the most capable farmers on the entire planet. I make somewhere between, I would say reasonably somewhere, as of right this moment, I make about $23,000 a month. And my income is actually compounding upwards at about 15 to 20% increase every single month. All right, and I managed to do all of this starting a first generation cattle ranch on a 10.5 acre field. Most people cannot make $25,000 a month doing anything. It doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to make $25,000 a month. Most people aren't. And that's my cash flow. All right, and I'm showing you how I did it for free. That's, you know, and nobody did it for me and I still made it. I'm legitimately showing you exactly how I do all of this for free. You know, at the end of the day, I'm the one with the money. I actually make the money. Right? And how many times are you going to get to watch somebody that, you know, it's just like, you know, it's like, this is legitimately a guy who generates millions of dollars a year by himself, doesn't have any employees or anything. He's just one guy on a field by himself making millions of dollars. How many times do you think you're going to get to see that? Probably not very many. I may be the only one. As far as I know, I don't even know anybody even doing 10%. All right, you know, and I'm giving you all of my information for free with the intentions of, you know, I'm not even going to say intentions, you know, because if you can get to the 10% mark, you can actually practice for free. Remember that. And even if you mess up, it won't matter. Because, I mean, let's say that you have a 5-acre field. Let's say you go and you buy yourself a 10-acre field. Let's say you go and buy yourself a 20-acre field. If you're legitimately serious about doing this, you know, let's say that you go and buy yourself a 20-acre field. How much is that 20-acre field going to cost you? Right? How much is it going to, hey, leave it alone. How much is that 20-acre field going to cost you? Maybe about $1,000 a month. All right, you go and you get yourself a 20-acre field and you pay for it $1,000 a month. So you go and you buy your field, you're paying $1,000 a month for it. How much money is it going to cost you to fertilize it? Like $1,000. And that $1,000 will grow you enough grass to feed like 60 animals for an entire month. All right, so, you know, even if you mess it up, remember that the money is negligible. When it comes to doing, and this is something that's very, because if you get into a situation where you legitimately convince yourself that you cannot do something because you don't have the money, you will always resort to that every single time anything costs anything. All right, and I'm telling you, when it comes to the money, when it comes to financials for me, like my financial situation is that it costs me $1,500, and for that $1,500 I make about $14,000 hard cash. In terms of just straight money, I make about $14,000 back on that. It's about $1,000 to $1,500 investment. In reality, I make about $23,000 back. If I legitimately felt like I needed more money out of my business, I could pull more money. I could just write myself a bigger check. Realistically, I make about $23,000 a month. I pay myself about $14,000 because that's about all the money that I need. I don't need more. What am I going to do with more money? Am I just going to sit there and look at it? What's the point of that? I pay myself 14 grand. My business makes about 23. And for me to run this entire business, it costs maybe $1,500 to $2,000 a month. I take the $2,000 out of the $23,000 that I make. That's the big idea. All right, you should not be worried about the money. The money is negligible. What is more important is that you have the right idea and that you have a solid plan and that you're actually going to go for it. That is more important. That is more important than the money. The money is negligible. Forget the money. Do you have an idea of what kind of fertilizer you're going to put on the field? Do you have an idea for what kind of vegetation is growing on your field? Do you have an idea for what kind of grass you can plant on the field if your vegetation is not right? Do you have an idea for what the mineral levels of your field are, the pH concentration of your soil? I mean, have you looked into these various things? Do you know how to identify a beef animal? How much are you going to pay for these animals? You need to understand these things more than be concerned about some trivial sum of money. At the end of the day, the money will come out of the money that you make. That's the big idea. The money, and I talk about this in terms of my perspective, is that why do I not care about the money? Because this does not cost me anything. It makes me a boatload. The money, it costs me negative money. I make about $23,000 and it costs me about $2,000. I pull the $2,000 out of the $23,000 that I make. What do I do with the rest of the money? I reinvest it into my business. I find good assets to purchase, right? I'm gonna grow my business. I'm gonna do better at growing the grass. I'll improve my vaccination program. I'll improve the feed that I'm, I'll find something, right? And then I'll reinvest the capital. Do I just sit there and look at the cash? No, I don't. Why would I do that? Right? Very, 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 very simple stuff. All right, and even if you mess it up, it doesn't matter. What's more important is that you keep trying. You have to keep trying. If you quit, for whatever if you quit, then you quit. All right. Remember that you quit. All right. And don't be a resentful loser for the rest of your life. You're the one who quit. Right? I mean, but it just is what it is. Okay. Remember that the money is negligible. What's more important is that you have the right idea and that you are going in the right direction. That is more important than anything. What kind of grass are you going to grow? What are the mineral concentrations of your field? What are the weather conditions? What kind of animals are you going to buy? How many animals are you going to buy? When you buy these animals, are you buying them real small at 200 pounds? There are different challenges for raising a 200-pound animal and a 350-pound animal. I mean, do you understand these things? Do you have the right idea? That's more important. And when it comes to my situation, how did I develop an understanding of all this, right? I went on Google Scholar and I looked up published scientific papers. I did not ask anybody. Billy Joe Bob, if Billy Joe Bob knew what he was doing, he would be doing it. All right, and at the end of the day, money talks. All right, money talks. I make a drastic amount of money doing this. I cash flow about $14,000. My business, actually, here's a very realistic way to look at it. My business makes about $23,000 a month, but I pay myself about $14,000. That's what's actually happening. I pay myself I write myself a check for $14,000. But my business actually makes about $23,000. And I talked about this in terms of cattle. Right, I'm actually running into a problem where if I legitimately just, if I don't increase the market weight for the animal, then I will effectively be in a situation where even if I don't use any debt, every time I sell one animal, I will effectively have to buy like another, another 7 animals in 2 weeks, and then I'll have to buy another 7 animals again in 2 weeks. And then my preconditioning pens are going to be completely full, and et cetera, et cetera. So, I've given myself a temporary fix for this problem by increasing the market weight because I have a lot of grass. My business is very efficient, et cetera, right? And so, but that's the most honest way for me to put it. I pay myself about $14,000, but my business actually makes about 23. I write myself a check for $14,000, but my business actually makes about 23. And the reason that I do that is what? Because what am I going to do with an extra $9,000? What am I going to do with that? Am I just going to sit there and look at it? It's not going to do anything, right? My investments are still growing. I might as well keep the investments. I have plenty of grass. My business is very efficient. Why would I not just keep the investments, right? But then again, at the end of the day, my investments are going to have to be liquidated. I'm not going to raise 1,000-pound animals. So how am I going to figure that problem out? I'm going to buy myself a big piece of land. That will give me somewhere to put some more of my capital, right? That's the big idea. I'm not going to sit here with an extra $9,000 just looking at it. What am I going to do with that? It's not going to do anything. All right, I'm already net positive about maybe $5,000 to $7,000 already. Now, I'm already having difficulty reinvesting all of my capital. I'm having a lot of difficulty doing that. I'm working on my preconditioning program. Maybe if I double vaccinate my animals, I can get a stronger vaccination response, and I can also reduce the preconditioning window. Right, but even if I do that, I'm only really shaving about a week off of the preconditioning program. All right, and but that's another way. But that's the most honest way to look at the financials. I pay myself about 14 grand because that's about how much money I need. I figure that's about as much money as I need. I pay myself about 14,000, but my business probably makes somewhere between 20 and 23,000, and it's compounding upwards at about 20% a month, 15 to 20% a month. On the yearly average, it's gonna be about 8 to 10% a month, because things are not gonna go this good all the time. In the summer, it'll get blazing hot. In the winter, it'll get freezing cold. Things are not gonna go this good all the time. Right? In terms of the long average, my business compounds growth about 8 to 10% a month. And how do I know that? The money, that's how I know it. Money talks. Money's not an opinion. Die poor, have fun. All right, I make a large amount of money. That's how I know. I take a look at the money. That's how I know. All right, it's very, very, very simple stuff. Okay, very simple stuff. It's not complicated. All right, you cannot be in a situation where you have a bunch of opinions and you're kind of a bum. All right, that's not good. All right, go practice, go learn something. Right, go improve yourself. All right, get over yourself, do something, right? There's a lot of things that you can possibly do, especially if you're not anywhere, especially if you don't really have any results at all. There's a lot that you can do, right? It's not difficult. And even at the end of the day, even if you mess it up, it's not going to cost you any money. What does it matter? Hardly anything. What does it matter? Right? You lost $350. What does it matter? You lost $500. What does it matter? It doesn't matter. At least, maybe you learned something along the way. That's what's more important. All right, and, but this is what my grass looks like, and I'm preconditioning the animals on this grass. And, and I'm not saying precondition your animals on grass. Don't do it unless you actually know what you're doing. But, the grass, this is what the grass looks like right now, and I've decided that I'm going to precondition the animals on it. The grass is maybe up to my ankle. The animals are not having acidosis on it or anything, And I've actually decided that I'm going to precondition the animals on the grass. And so, but I'm not suggesting that you just flat out precondition animals on grass, okay? When you're preconditioning an animal, the smaller the animal is, the more aware you need to be of what they are eating. All right, you really don't want to be putting animals, or any animal at all, on brush. You don't, if your feed values are too low, it doesn't matter what kind of animal you're raising, they're not going to gain properly. They're probably going to be vitamin deficient. Your grass is going to actually be accumulating a negative amount of biomass, over a sustained period of time. And you don't want to be in a situation where, your grass is going, downhill, right? Your animals are degrading slowly, right? The body conditioning score of your animals falling, and you're convinced that your life is a journey, right? And you don't want to be like that. You don't. Your animals are going to suffer. You're not going to get anywhere. Nobody cares about your dreams. You got to get it together, okay? You got to get it together. And, at the end of the day, even if you mess it up, it's not going to really cost you anything. For me to fertilize 10 acres of grass and grow grass like this, on the average, it cost me about $400 a month. And I planted all this grass too, right? I planted all of it. It cost me about $400 a month, maybe $500. And so, even if you mess it up, it should only cost you a couple $100. All right, it's not something that it's like you need to, remortgage your house for. All right, but that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one. I want to take a look at the grass. The cattle are definitely grazing it. But that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.